Welcome back. Lettermen Row. Tim May and I talking about the Ohio State National Championship. Yes, your Ohio State Buckeyes, the 2024 national champions of the college football world. Tim, we haven't talked since we were on the field at the national championship game. Well, we have talked, but we haven't talked on camera. Everything off camera is off limits for the public because they don't need to know what we say.
What happens off camera stays off camera, I think is what you're trying to say.
You're absolutely right, partner, which is why on lettermenrow.com right now, you can go get the sights and sounds from the postgame celebration of the national championship. I recorded a ton of video on the field. I put that into a story with a lot of what I heard, what I saw, the things I was feeling, the confetti and everything like that. Some just sights and sounds from the national championship game. It's a real inside look into how the Buckeyes celebrated. I cut it off at the locker room. The cigar smoke was pouring out of the locker room. What I saw and heard in the locker room stays in that locker room because that's what the Buckeyes were celebrating. That we were allowed in there to get on the record quotes. What I was hearing when my recorder wasn't on, or what people didn't know, if people didn't know they were being, listened to, I'm not going to put that in there. But still, go to lettermenrow.com right now. $1 for your first 7 days. It's a good inside look at the celebration of the Buckeyes winning that national championship. Tim, you and I were both there. Everybody knows that now. There's been a ton of people who have watched our video. We cannot thank you enough. You are the reason we are allowed to do this, that we get to do this. But we're going to go 3 big picture questions here. It's funny, when you win the national championship, there's a lot of smaller, minute, micro stories about the game itself and about the college ball playoff run itself. But national championships mean you have to look big picture because you forever go into the history books of the program. This is only the 9th time they've ever done this, the 3rd time since 2000, the 4th time in the last 50 years. So, you go big picture automatically just by default. So I've got 3 big picture questions here for the 41-year vet, Tim May. Tim, first question. Your offensive MVP / the guy you will forever remember on this college football playoff run on the offensive side, and then the same thing for your defensive MVP, the guy you will forever remember for this college football playoff run on the defensive side. Offensive MVP of the 4-game stretch and defensive MVP of the 4-game stretch.
Where do I go with that? Offensive MVP, though, is Will Howard, because you have to have a quarterback to win it all. You have to have a quarterback who's playing at the top of his game 8 times out of 10 plays to win it all. And especially, this is until Ohio State, discovered the new world. This was uncharted territory, a 4-game run through the playoffs. You got to have a man at the helm who, even if they bump an iceberg, can keep the ship going. So, I would love to name both running backs because they both contributed in different games in huge ways. Jeremiah Smith makes a lot of sense, except against Texas, he had 1 catch, So Will Howard and the rest of the, crew using Jeremiah Smith as a decoy had to deliver. But the bottom line is you have to have that quarterback to win it all. And I'm going to go with Will Howard. I picked him as my MVP for the national championship game previously, going, before the game started. And I'm going to go with him, my MVP overall for the offense. Final answer.
Okay. What about the defense?
Man, where do you go there? I think my overall MVP defensively is probably, I'm going to stick with the guy I've been calling the best linebacker in college football, especially the last half of the season. And he's definitely delivered on it in the 4 games in the playoffs. I'm going to go with Cody Simon. But there are a lot of guys who get awards. I mean, Jack Sawyer played his rear end off. So did JT Tuimoloau and all these other guys. But I'm going with Cody Simon. Final answer.
Yeah, I'm going to give my picks too, Tim. So I didn't want you to name all these defensive guys.
Oh, no, you can still pick the guys that were consolations.
Okay, so those are your consolation winners, I suppose. So you've got Will Howard and Cody Simon. I'm actually going to go in 2 different directions here. I am going to go Donovan Jackson. I do not think this could have happened without Donovan Jackson. The edge rushers he went up against in this 4-game stretch, nothing short of remarkable. And you know what, Tim? I think he was a better left tackle this year than he was a left guard.
I agree 100%.
That's nothing taking away from what Josh Simmons did for this team at left tackle before he got hurt. That's nothing taking away from what Donovan Jackson was as a left guard at 2.5 years as a starter there. But when he moved to left guard, he truly showed, or when he moved from left guard to left tackle, he truly showed what he could do on the field. His versatility is going to make him absolutely exponentially more money than he would have just made playing guard in the NFL, because you can only keep 53 on a roster. And if teams know that he can play guard or tackle against NFL edge rushers, which he did multiple times in the college ball playoff, James Pierce is going to be a first-round pick. Jordan Birch and Mateo Uiagalelei have chances to be high-level NFL players. Colin Simmons at Texas is going to be a future first-round pick in 2 years. He and Jeremiah Smith might battle for the number 1 overall pick in a couple years. And then Notre Dame, for all the things that they weren't as pass rushing, I thought RJ Oben is a good player. I think they have good, sound defensive linemen who can rush the passer. And he didn't. And Donovan Jackson didn't have much of an issue there either. He gave up 2 pressures in however many. I wrote it down at lettermenrow.com. I forget the number now. He gave up 2 pressures in the college football playoff. That is absolutely remarkable for a player who played guard for 2.5 years for this team and just out of an emergency. And it was the emergency to the emergency. Zen Mahalski gets hurt against Nebraska, and then they go to Donovan Jackson. I think he's the offensive MVP of this run. I don't think that this happens if Will Howard doesn't have his blind side protected. And then defensively, I am going to go with Jack Sawyer. I wish I could give it to this whole defensive line. They turned up a notch. They found another gear in the 4 game stretch.
What are you doing here?
But Jack Sawyer is the catalyst for that. He's the poster boy for that.
Okay.
I thought
You narrowed it down. All right.
I thought JT, like you said, was phenomenal. He reached the double-digit sack mark. I thought Tyleik Williams was unblockable against Texas. He was great at other times. But, man, like, the heart and soul of this defense officially became Jack Sawyer as this thing went on. And with all due respect to your guy, Cody Simon, the blocko, the team captain, like, this defense ran through Jack Sawyer. And from an emotional standpoint, from a physical standpoint, Jack was the leader of this defense. And I think to see him hoist the national championship trophy after what he did against Texas and even before that, I would have to give him defensive MVP, but I don't think your answers are wrong at all.
Thank you.
It's hard. It's hard to narrow it down, man.
But while you were talking, I was looking. I mean, I think I've shaved too far down on this side. This side right here. Then I have this side. But then when I look at it, I think I'm just tilting my head a little bit. Okay, go ahead.
I saw you tilting your head a little bit there. I'm like, what?
I know. I was trying to figure out. Wait a minute. Did I do an Abraham Lincoln on this side and a Stonewall Jackson on this side? What did I do there? Go ahead now.
Well, that's the north side of your face, and that's the south side of your face, so it makes sense.
Exactly.
All right, Tim. Question number 2.
Wait a minute. You notice it says Stonewall Jackson, not Robert E. Lee. Go ahead now.
Yeah. Question number 2 for you, Tim. Ryan Day. We're getting more big picture as we go. Ryan Day is now one of 3 sitting head coaches to have a national championship ring. He's the only one with 1. Kirby Smart has 2. Dabo Swinney has 2. Dabo's both came before Kirby's first 2. Dabo's obviously both came before Ryan's and before Kirby's. Ryan has the most recent.
Yeah.
When you stack up not only those 3, but just coaches in college football, do you think Ryan Day is at the top? Or do you still think that he needs to beat Michigan?
I think Ryan Day
like I said, this is a sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but like I said, this is more of a big picture thing. He now has a national championship. Right. He doesn't have a second one, but
I'm fixing to answer it. Oh, Ryan Day, in my opinion, is the number 1 coach in college football right now because number 1, he showed what he can do. He and his staff can do, but it always has to come from the head coach. Like I told him that from December 1 through January 20, I've never seen a coach at Ohio State do anything better than what he did with this football team. And I stand by that statement. And I'm talking about even the late great Woody Hayes. Bottom line is what he did from down in the dumps to, my goodness, the national championship, a 4-game run to a national championship, unprecedented. No coach has ever had to guide a team through something like that. And the gauntlet they ran, they beat top 5 teams in the nation this year. Are you kidding me? But then in the gauntlet they ran to the national championship, not just winning the games, but the level at which they won those games, the level at which they played, best coaching job I've ever seen in a streak like that. So I'm not even sure what I'm answering, except for the fact that I think Ohio State, from a now on-field performance standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, from an administrative standpoint, I think Ryan Day checks all of the boxes. I think he should be considered, if you really sit back and look at it, the number one coach in college football at this point now, because he has that thing sticking up behind him in his office now, which means national champion. It's like I've said before, there are great college basketball coaches, and then there are the ones that were great that also have a national championship to hang on their wall. And Ryan Day is now that guy in college football.
Yeah, like we said, Tim, it took Kirby to year 6. It now took Ryan Day to year 6. It's almost like a Roy Williams thing. We talked about that last week. You keep beating your head against this thing, eventually that glass ceiling is going to shatter. And it was always a glass ceiling. It was never a ceiling that Ryan Day couldn't see through. He could always see a national championship there. Kirby, in 5 years before his national championship, could always see that goal there. He got to a runner-up appearance, in his time there in 2017 against Alabama with the 2nd and 26, much like Ryan Day got to a national championship game in 2020 and couldn't get the job done. Both of those, ironically enough, came against Alabama and Nick Saban. So maybe the ceiling there was just a Saban ceiling. It wasn't a glass ceiling. Now he has that national championship to compete with Kirby. I don't know if people realize this, but Ryan Day now has the second most college football playoff wins of any active head coach, just behind Dabo Swinney, and all of Dabo's came before COVID. Dabo has not won a playoff game since 2019 when he beat Ohio State and beat Ryan Day. Dabo has 6. Kirby and Ryan Day both have 5. Now, 4 of them for Ryan Day just came in the last 5 weeks, but guess what? Who cares? Who gives a you-know-what? Yeah, Kirby's got one more national championship ring to put on his finger than Ryan does, but Ryan has the most recent one, and now, again, Ryan has the second most playoff wins in the sport. I think he'll have the third most ever. Saban has the first most. Dabo has the second most. Ryan and Kirby have the third most. So, Ryan has as many national championships and more playoff wins than Jim Harbaugh. All the great coaches that you're talking about from the last few years, all Ryan had to do was win a national championship, and he automatically goes into that discussion. And now it goes from having the block
a guy fans wanted to run off, not just run off, wanted to carry him off.
Yeah. Now they also want to carry him off in a different way. They wanted to carry him off by his hands and his feet before, and now they want him on their shoulders to carry him off. It's a completely different dynamic, but I think that's an entirely different show that we'll talk about next week, is how do Ohio State fans and Ryan Day move forward with this relationship that, yes, there's a national championship there. It's still complicated because of the Michigan thing. And so we'll have that discussion. I think that's a great discussion, Tim. I'll actually write that down right now. Ryan discussion for next week.
It is complicated.
So maybe that's going to be a Lettermen Live presented by Wendy's, because that could be a 45-minute conversation, and a really good one, to be honest. Yeah. But at the same time, what Ryan Day needed, not chased or coveted or wanted, what he absolutely needed, Tim, was a national championship to go from being Urban Meyer's successor to now being the head coach at Ohio State. And he's been that for the last 5 years. But everybody always compared him to Urban Meyer. And I don't know how much more you can continue to do that, because this was not Ryan taking over and in 2021 winning a national championship, and you say, well, Urban recruited a lot of those guys, and let's wait until it's Ryan's roster.
Right.
There is not a single person on this roster that was recruited by Urban Meyer. There's not a single guy. Well, I mean, I guess you could say Jack Sawyer was recruited by Urban Meyer because Jack was a 15-year-old prodigy. But, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's not a single guy. No, there's only 5 or 6 guys in general in the entire building who are still there from the Urban tenure. So, like,
yeah, but some key guys, Mark Pantoni,
yes, absolutely,
Mr. Marotti, right on down the line. There's some key, Mr. Voltolini. There are some great guys in key positions there that help make the transition. But the bottom line is, you're right. I mean, this is not something from a player standpoint that Ryan Day inherited. He and his staff developed all of these guys and or procured them through the transfer portal. But the bottom line is, right now, if you look at Ohio State's operation, it is second to none in terms of the modern way, the new era modern way of running a major college football program. And that's where Ryan Day made his biggest step, was stepping away from being a play caller and a quasi offensive coordinator, because, he had other duties even back then, to being the CEO. And clearly he had his hands. He dabbled in the play calling with his I call him his uncle, Chip Kelly, his older brother, Chip Kelly. But the bottom line is, he became a fully fledged head coach this year. And you saw the dividends that when it got the darkest hour, he schemed a way for him and his program to get their act back together, and then they stormed through the playoffs. I mean, what more can you say?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree, and that's why one of the questions was about Ryan Day. Is like, a lot of Ohio State fans think that Urban Meyer needed to bring Ohio State into the 21st century. Obviously, they were there. They won a championship with Jim Tressel, but it was very much still an old school style of recruiting and the way that things were done at Ohio State, and they needed Urban to bring them into that era. Ohio State, in a way, needed Urban to step away and needed a different guy, a younger guy like Ryan Day, to come in and usher in the new NIL transfer portal era, because there are still questions about how Urban Meyer would do in that era. There are no questions anymore about how Ryan Day would do. He just built a national championship roster. And so
Urban Meyer might not have liked the new way, but Urban Meyer would have adapted. I mean, he would
absolutely
have adapted. And number two, I want people to understand, Urban Meyer won 3 national championships, 2 at Florida and 1 at Ohio State. He is one of the elite. That's why he went into the college. He was elected into the College Football Hall of Fame this year. We're just talking about specifically right now of the 3 guys who've won championships in all of major college football, the 3 guys who are still coaching right now. I would put Ryan Day ahead of the other 2, because I think Ohio State has really streamlined itself in this new era and is going about it the right way. And the decisions on that ultimately come from the office of Ryan Day, Esquire.
I completely agree. And, there's going to be, to be honest, I think this offseason we'll have a lot of debate on Ryan Day versus Kirby Smart, because Kirby does have another national championship than him. But what officially separates them, now that Ryan has one, what officially separates those two is a 50-yard field goal in Mercedes-Benz Stadium 2 years ago.
Correct.
So that was a boxing match, a heavyweight fight that you may never see again. 42-41 in that game. And that's all that separates these two, because aside, you strip 2022 out of it, where it was literally a coin toss game, and they each have a national championship. Now, Kirby obviously got that second national championship. You can't take that away. We're not going to just discount that. But it's a great discussion to have. Ryan versus Kirby.
His team found a way to win that night, and
correct,
and came from 14 points down and beat Ohio State. No matter how you size it up and all the stuff, the dynamics that went on in that game, Georgia found a way. Just like Ohio State this year, really, except for like one quarter, really against Texas, Ohio State ran roughshod through the 4-game gauntlet. That's about as impressive a run as any college football team has ever made, but especially in the new era, it's unprecedented because it's the first time ever, but wow.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think the Ryan versus Kirby discussion, because I don't think anybody would take right now in its current state Dabo's Clemson over either of Georgia or Ohio State. Like, the Ryan versus Kirby discussion is fascinating.
Right.
They're the only 2 since COVID with a national championship ring.
Yeah.
Last question for you, Tim. I guess this is going to be a half-hour show. Last question for you, Tim. 3 questions about the Ohio State National Championship run, 3 big picture questions. This might be the most difficult question for any Ohio State fan, but the 41-year vet, this is the one person that I care about's opinion. I love Ohio State fans. I love Ohio State historians. I wouldn't even want Jack Park's opinion over yours, though, Tim.
Okay.
I want your opinion on this. 2002, 2014, 2024, as impossible as it sounds to do, the 3 national championships, not the teams, but what the championships meant, because you were there for all 3 of them. Can you rank them?
I think your latest is always number 1.
Latest is greatest, yeah.
It means you're still viable. It means you're still considered one of the elite programs in the country. I mean, no team. You look back through college football over the last, going back to like, let's just put it back to 1968 when Ohio State won its last, what I would call consensus national championship under Woody Hayes, the 1968 team. From 1968 to now, no other program in the country has been in position to win as many national championships as Ohio State has. The Ohio State football program has barely dipped a few times in that whatever many years that is run. Was it 60 years almost now? But to get the fruits of your labor, to actually win the national championship, just revives everything. And it brings this new generation of Ohio State fans into believing, yeah, they should win it every year. Well, nobody does that. Not even Alabama did that. But so your latest one is the most important one because it rekindles the fire and throws gasoline on it in many respects. 2002, that team went undefeated. It also won 14 games. And it went undefeated, became the first team in major college football history to go 14-0. And the drama in about 6 of those games was ridiculous, including the national championship game, which went to 2 overtimes. So huge at the time. So much of, the John Cooper era, they came so close at least 4 times there to winning or at least playing for a national championship. It was crazy, but couldn't get over that hump. So to shake down the echoes again was huge for that 2002 team. And of course, it also, with Jim Tressel involved, they went on to go 9-1 against Michigan unofficially. The Urban Meyer era was a revival at exactly the right time because of what happened in 2010 and 2011, and to get that championship the way they did, as quickly as they did. Under Urban Meyer 3 years in was huge. That was also a team that lost early, came back, went through, including preseason camp, 3 quarterbacks to win that championship unexpectedly. Got in the back door of the first ever 4-team college football playoff, and then kicked the bar down as they went through the saloon against Alabama and Oregon. This team came in through the side door because even after the loss to Michigan, you knew they were going to make the playoff. But what kind of team was this team going to be in the playoff based on what you had seen, the down and out in the doldrums, back the moving vans up to Ryan Day's house, who some jackass put his address on the internet. Are you kidding me? What a jackass or jackasses. But the bottom line is Ryan Day circled the wagons. In essence, in what he did after that game with that big meeting was he let his older players, really the entire roster, take ownership of this team. All right, this is a great roster. We think we might be the best roster in the country. Take ownership. And they circled the wagons. Actually, they circled and locked arms and said a prayer at the end of their, shake down, drag out meeting. And dude, how many teams in Ohio State history have you seen play like this team did 4 straight games against big time opponents? So it's hard to rank them, but the latest one is always the most important.
I think I agree with your list, Tim, and here's why. From a much younger perspective, I also think the latest one is always the greatest one, but at the same time, Jim Tressel proved so quickly he could win a national championship the year 2. Urban Meyer, the day he was hired at Ohio State, everyone knew eventually, more likely than not, he was going to win a national championship. And then he did it in year 3, kind of erased any questions. Now, hindsight is 2020, and he didn't win another one. So maybe that's naive, but that's also hindsight. Because when he was, I remember when he was hired, you remember when he was hired, we knew eventually Urban Meyer was going to win a national championship at Ohio State. It was a matter of time. It took Ryan to year 6. There were questions as early as as late as December 20th, 2024, even asking whether this guy could ever win a national championship. It took him to year 6. And so I think this is not only the greatest 4-game run that made everybody lose themselves when Jack Sawyer scooped and scored against Texas, when they battled back, when Notre Dame battled back and Ohio State had to throw one last haymaker with Jeremiah Smith, this embattled group, this much maligned group. So I will put 2024 at number 1. I will put 2002 at number 2 because I was 6 years old and I watched grown men cry in front of a TV. That championship, and I think we have lost sight of what that meant. 34 years. Ohio State may never go 34 years again without winning a national championship. 34 years. And Jim Tressel and that team proved that, yes, you still can win a national championship at Ohio State. This is not the 90s anymore, where they were losing to Michigan and not able to get over the hump and winning a national championship. And to do it against that Miami team, what a game, what a ride, what a season. I put 2002 ahead. The only reason that I put 2014, it's not to discount Cardale Jones or Devin Smith or Ezekiel Elliott or Joey Bosa, because I actually think 2014 would beat the 2002 team, and I think that the 2024 versus 2014 might play a 3-0 game because of how good those defenses were. But we knew Urban Meyer was going to win a national championship. It was a matter of time. And he did it. And that'll forever be one of the great stories in Ohio State history. But as for the 21st century national championships, I do think it goes number 3. And it's hard to rank these. It's like ranking your favorite kids. You know, I will say this. After the game, I asked Mark Pantoni what his favorite national championship was of the 4 that he's won with Urban at Florida and then, you know, with Urban and Ryan at Ohio State. And he had no answer. Like, you can't truly rank these.
Right.
But for us, you know, it is interesting to put it into historical context of what each of these 3 mean. And I think this one is the most important. 2002 was the second most important because of all those reasons, proving that you can win one at Ohio State. And then 2014 goes 3rd.
And here's where the latest matters. I mean, ask Alabama fans right now how they feel, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, they have all these memories of the Nick Saban era, and all of a sudden Kalen DeBoer is not good enough. And right on down the line, I mean, once you light the fire, you got to keep the fire going. And the Ohio State fire was down to embers again in the national championship realm. And boom, they threw about 2 gallons of gasoline on it the other night in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. But what a gauntlet they had to run to get there. No team in history has ever run that gauntlet. So really, when you think about it, when you think about the process of elimination of even getting considered to play in a national championship game, it just went up huge this year with having to play a minimum of 4 games in the postseason. So I give it to the 2024/25 team, which, you know, we're almost a full month into 2025. The 2024 national champion Ohio State team deserves all the credit. And by team, I mean from the head coach down to the training staff, and then right on down the list. So that's where I fall on it.
We did a lot of micro talking on the field at Mercedes-Benz Stadium after the game, confetti around our feet. We talked about the Ohio State Buckeyes in 2024 and 2025, what that meant to the program to win a national championship. If you have not watched that national championship rapid reaction, I am begging you to go watch it. It is Tim. I think it's the best post game that Tim has ever had. He absolutely brought it. And I'm not saying that because you're sitting in front of me, Tim. I'm being honest. Like, I watched back over it, and the insight that you brought to that national championship edition of the Rapid Reaction was just absolutely fantastic.
Same to you, though, brother. I mean, you know what? I mean, it was a huge moment. It was a huge moment. You know, it's huge to get to cover something like that. But just think about the players and the coaches involved. But the players, man, Quinshon Judkins, 3 touchdowns in that game. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Will Howard was on point. The defense made the plays when it needed to make the plays. And then, Jeremiah Smith. I mean, are you kidding me? To put a cap on the greatest freshman season by a wide receiver in history, forget about Ohio State history, in history, to put a cap on it with that 56-yard or whatever it ended up being, run and catch, crazy. We saw great football in all kinds of ways throughout the playoffs, but then to see that team summon it one more time, and command performance, it doesn't get any better than that if you're a college football fan. I mean, and I've always been a college football fan, and I make no apologies for being excited about it and being emotional is not the right term. Like I said, I quit crying after Alabama lost the football games when I was 12 years old. I don't have those kind of emotions. I just like to watch guys play at the highest level. They're always flawed performances, no matter how they are. But boy, is it cool to see guys at the highest level step up and make plays when it's needed most. And you saw that from that entire football team.
You're absolutely right, Tim. And like I said, more of that over at the Rapid Reaction. This was more of a big picture look at what this means. We will have plenty more. I'm going to try to get Tim for 45 minutes on Thursday before he leaves for his little vacation rendezvous for this weekend. Tim, you've earned it.
The Eagles, baby.
Yeah, and you've earned it. You're going to take it easy for a few days with the Eagles.
Not the Philadelphia Eagles, the Eagles.
We're just going to keep covering Lettermen Row, or Ohio State football at Lettermen Row. We've got a lot of preview coverage of the 2025 edition of the Ohio State Buckeyes, how they can repeat, some stay or go decisions that some Buckeyes are going to have. NFL draft is coming up. But we're not going to stop talking about this national championship run. It was far too special. As Ryan Day said, there are too many stories to tell, and we're going to try to tell all of them at lettermenrow.com. Go there right now, lettermenrow.com. $1 for your first 7 days. That gets you all of our post-game coverage from the national championship. You can go back and read that. Then you get 7 days of additional coverage. Next week is going to be a look-ahead week for us at lettermenrow.com. We're only 6 weeks from spring ball. A lot to break down over there. $1 for your first 7 days. Like the video below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we'll see you guys over at lettermenrow.com. For Tim May, the 41-year vet, I'm just Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here locked in at Lettermen Row. We'll see you guys back on Thursday for another breakdown of the Buckeyes.